the beam because it's time for Nerdy for 30, the podcast where we talk about nerdy-ish movies for 30-ish minutes. My name is Kevin Bauer, aka the Critic's Choice. With me, as always, is the People's Champ, Tim Keck. And today we are talking about Oppenheimer. Now, we covered this once before as part of our disastrous Barbenheimer episode, which many people, some would say all people, told us was not enough time to cover both of those movies adequately. So we are here today again talking about Oppenheimer, which of course won Best Picture at the Oscars, which means, Tim, I gotta know, what is your opening take on this movie?
Kevin, I think it's even better on the rewatch. I'm all in on this thing. I think it's great. It's going to be on in my home a lot going forward. I like it even better now. Now that I know where it's going, I know it has an ending. I enjoyed the shit out of this movie. I really did. It's my fave. It's my favorite movie ever. It's not my favorite, but it's great. I thought it was great. What do you think about it, Kevin?
Tim, I think Oppenheimer is a self-indulgent, fake intellectual buckshot movie that uses a sheet music metaphor to cover up a game of connect the dots. I've got another take. That's my downer take. I've got an upper take as well.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. My upper take is Oppenheimer is one of the greatest mind-bending filmmakers of all time, accomplishing the greatest magic trick of all, winning Best Picture with a superhero movie.
What? What are you even talking about?
This is a superhero movie,
It's
dude.
not a superhero
Everybody's
movie. In
like,
what way is it a
Christopher Nolan,
superhero movie?
he just made a superhero movie about a scientist. There is a scene in
That's
this
not
movie
true.
where the theme song swells while Oppenheimer puts on his superhero costume, which for him just happens to be a blazer and a fedora and a little tiny pipe that I don't even think we ever see him smoke, but apparently that's part of like the Oppenheimer suit. That's his Batman utility belt.
That part I love. He does shoot it like it's Batman, but
He shoots this whole thing like it's Batman.
there is way more ass kissing in this movie than any superhero movie I've ever seen. Even in Superman, they're not like, wow, Superman, you're so great. You're so cool. It's like we watch him do cool shit. But in this movie, it's just constantly like, wow, it's like Hamilton, where it's like,
oh my God, yeah.
They're just talking about this guy constantly. And it doesn't seem like there's enough to talk about, but they keep coming up with things to say.
No, we are told that he's like a great thinker for his time. I like he was, obviously he was. I'm not trying to decry the real man. I want to make a delineation right now that when I'm coming at Oppenheimer, I'm coming at the portrayal of Oppenheimer in this movie, not the real man, the character
Yes.
Oppenheimer in the movie Oppenheimer. We are told all the time that he's this brilliant thinker. The only practical deep thinking we ever really see him do or hear about him is that he's bad at math. So it's like we're told
Right.
this guy's incredible. He's very bad at math though, but Einstein is too, so that's fine.
Yes, I was going
We
to say
see-
Einstein's also bad at math.
Yeah,
They are
which is-
peers.
sure, yeah, they're peers. Great, awesome. In this movie, we don't ever really see him do anything that would prove to us as the audience that he is extremely intelligent. I think about movies like The Social Network or movies like oh my God, I'm blanking. I had this prepared. I'm no Oppenheimer. I don't have the mental fortitude to be Oppenheimer, the character. But there are movies that have done a very good job of this, where they take a very simple thought and convey it to you, the audience, in a way that makes you think that the person is brilliant. Like the ability, it can be like a very tiny thing, like the ability to think about a problem from an angle that nobody ever has before. And then you're like, wow, this person's really smart. They never really do this. They don't spend any time proving to us that he's smart. They just tell us the whole time.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, they do show rooms full of people blown away by the things he's saying. So in that regard, he must be good at something. I mean, but all of his stuff is theoretical. He's just saying, what if a star, exploded? And I'm like,
Sure.
really, no one else has ever brought this up. This is the first time anyone in a college setting has ever thought about a star imploding. I don't know. I find that hard to believe for whatever reason. But you know what? Someone invented the wheel. Before
Sure.
that, there was no wheel.
Yeah,
So
man.
somebody at one point sat down and said, if we made this round, we could roll it. And that was a revolutionary thought that we now take for granted today. So maybe he is the first person to think about stars exploding or why did a ship full of dynamite blow up. It's these are profound thoughts. I agree. They don't really show it in a satisfying way. And I was thinking watching this that Killian Murphy, Oppenheimer, might just be a project manager.
Yeah.
He might just be the CEO who takes credit for all the work of other people. I mean, there is that other character. Oh man, what's his name? Who's like working on the hydrogen bomb, who
Yeah,
seems
Teller.
to be way smarter than him.
I
And
was going to say the same thing. They give him moments where he gets to prove his smartness. He brings up the idea of really dense hydrogen. And then what is it? Like 15 minutes later in the movie, they say that that is what the Germans are working on. And they all go like, hey. And I mean, to be fair, they say that it means they've taken a wrong turn, but still, it's like,
they were talking about like heavy water though or
yeah,
something. Yeah, I don't think it was the same project. It wasn't the same thing as the hydrogen bomb.
okay.
I think those are two different things. But I appreciate your point that seems like he's surrounded with smarter people. And if you wanted to make the case that Oppenheimer is a glorified project manager, I would not fight you on that at all. I mean, maybe that's all he's good for is just coordinating people. It seems like I mean, they at one point Teller says to him, "You don't have any. You've turned your back on physics. You're a politician now." And it's like, yeah, that's what happens when you get promoted, and all of a sudden you're at the managers meeting and you're on that Zoom with like a couple other higher ups on the company. Like, you're not one of those pipsqueaks like working the front lines. Like, you're not getting your hands dirty. At some point, he must forget about the physics and starts thinking about the ramifications of the physics, which is
Mhm.
much more political than actual scientific discovery.
But you know what's funny about that? You can lean into another biopic. You can lean into the Steve Jobs metaphor of what do I do? I play the orchestra. Like he's not one of the people playing one of the instruments, he's playing the whole orchestra at the same time.
Yes.
But what's hilarious about applying that analogy here is that they spend so much of this movie telling us about his communist beliefs. And then this guy goes out and takes all the credit for the work this team is doing.
I guess I think that maybe that was forced on him more than him taking it, but also he was the face of the project, and that always ends up happening. I think what's also interesting about this is what a piece of shit Oppenheimer is. Like, Oppenheimer as a dude sucks. People like him because he's brilliant, but he's so condescending and he's such an asshole and he's fucking everybody's wife. Like,
Oh my God,
this
yeah.
guy is laying more pipe than, math equations in this thing. He's got his priorities in order and they're not physics first. I, he's such a scumbag. And yet, so I can see him taking this credit for things, but it also seems like he has been pushed forward as the face of it. And the whole movie is treating him like a god. So people are picking him up on their shoulders. It's his thing. They're glorifying him. So he's pushed into the limelight. He's embraced it. He's taken it on for himself. But it seems like Christopher Nolan thinks to some degree that he deserves it.
Oh, he definitely does. I stopped counting about halfway through the movie, but by the time I stopped counting, I swear to God, there had been 7 times where people told him how important he was to his face.
All the time. I constantly he's being told how important he is. There's a scene in this which blew my mind where him and his wife have a baby and
Mhm.
she would rather get drunk than take care of this baby. So they
Right.
drive to a communist friend's house. They're
Uh-huh.
like, we're terrible people. Can you please watch the kid for a while? And the guy's like, you're not a terrible person. A terrible person wouldn't even think about being terrible. And I get that to some degree. But then he continues with like, this is the price of genius, and it's like, what do you mean this is the price of genius? Oppenheimer is so smart that he gets to abandon his children. Like,
Mhm.
that's and this guy is like, no, that's the price you pay, you know like he's an
It,
NBA player or something like that. He's just not allowed to. He just doesn't need to be involved with his kids at all because he's a rock star. He's just on the road, banging groupies, and if he plants some seeds, he can't come into town and water them all the time. He's just got to send cash from the road.
what do you expect? He's a great man, Tim.
He's a
That does
great
bring me
man.
to, I want to bring up like my main beef with this movie because I want to get your take on it. So This scene obviously moves at an absolutely breakneck pace. It is absurd how many cuts there are in this movie. I mean, I think most of the problems that I have with the movie stem from the fact that nobody talks like a human being because in order to make it through these scenes as quickly as they can, people have to come to emotional resolutions immediately. And there's no way to do that with natural language. So everybody sounds like a robot the entire
Yes.
movie. So, like, maybe that conversation happened in real life. I don't know the real Oppenheimer's life that well. Maybe the real life Chevalier did take in Oppenheimer's kid for a while. Maybe the real life Chevalier did eventually come to a point where he realized, you know, maybe this is what I can do for society, the same way that Oppenheimer is helping the United States win this war. But I'm pretty sure it didn't happen in 15 seconds. So I understand that we want to cover a lot of ground, but I really feel like it comes at the expense of allowing us to realistically live in any of these moments and kind of take in these moments in a more naturalistic way. And I wanted to get your take on why you think this movie is cut as fast as it is, why you think Nolan's trying to cover as much ground as he is, instead of shrinking the scope of the movie so that we can live in it a little bit better.
I was gonna bring up Top Gun Maverick. I mean, we've talked about that a lot, how it's TikToks. It's
Yeah.
a bunch of TikToks, and Christopher Nolan has decided that he is gonna go at this breakneck pace and just not let up. And I personally, I agree with everything you've said about this movie so far. I understand all of the critiques, but this to me scratches an itch. And on the rewatch, it's like really getting there of like an Aaron Sorkin newsroom, like a rapid fire, maybe a Law and Order or something like that, where it's
Mhm.
just a barrage of words from good actors. Like, I think the acting is great, and they are rushing to get words out, and it cuts so fast, but it's so consistent that there is something I find incredibly comforting about this. This is Rebel Moon adjacent. Maybe something's
Oh,
happened to me,
Jesus
man,
Christ.
where just the flaws of it, I gloss over the flaws and I just enjoy the thing that I'm washing in, So I mean, I could pick this apart, but I'm gonna just have it on in the background all day. Like, I enjoyed it so much more this time. I was dreading rewatching this because I was like, this
Were
is
you
the
really?
last movie you want to rewatch. This is like 3 hours. It's gonna be a slog. And I think I watched it maybe in a couple different parts, like throughout a day, and it was fantastic. I loved it. And after seeing it and knowing what's coming, you start noticing all these things with the scenes and start picking up on different characters. And I think this will be the kind of thing that I end up watching a lot of times and picking up on different stuff every time.
That's
Uh
interesting you say that because Nolan is such a big theater head that I don't think he wants you to be able to watch it like that at all. I
I
think if
don't think
Nolan
so.
had his
I
way,
think you're right. I
like,
think you're right.
I don't think he wants people to have TVs, dude. He came out strong against people doing what we do on this podcast and reviewing things as amateur reviewers. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, man.
he believes in a
I'll tell
fixed
you, I'm
world.
wrong about this.
No, I don't think you are. You have an opinion, Tim. That's
I think
valid.
I'm wrong. I think it's not the popular opinion. But I'd be curious to see if other people feel this way, that there is something comforting about it, that even though it is incredibly shallow, not in shallow, honestly, I just started thinking about Rebel Moon again. It's but it
You
has
immediately
a
went
similar
shallow.
thing to that with me, where it's like the vibe is so good that I don't care about the substance, which is honestly the opposite of how I feel about a lot of these movies in general, and pretty much all the movies we talk about. But sometimes the vibe is so good that I just enjoy it. And I think the acting is great in this. Um, Kind of off topic, but I wanted to bring this up as a personal revelation, I think,
Hmm.
which, I mean, one of my least favorite movies of all time is Joker. It's terrible.
Sure.
I think it's self-indulgent. I
Hmm.
don't enjoy watching actors act. You know, Joker is a
Absolutely.
movie where they say, "Hey, look at this guy, watch him act." And so I was thinking with Poor Things, Emma Stone, she's a great actor. She's a great actress.
Hmm.
Eh, Poor Things and the acting she's doing in that movie, Poor Things is a watch Emma Stone act movie.
Yeah.
It's Joker adjacent, where I mean I appreciate Poor Things
Wow.
more Joker is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, but the similarity is that it is a watch Emma Stone act movie.
Sure.
Whereas Killian Murphy carries the weight of this, but the words are propelling him forward and the plot is propelling him forward. And I feel like he's captivating. I am all in on it. I love Killian Murphy in this. And it's just a different, I feel like these are different contests that they are in, you know? They're different. I mean, I was trying to compare them to athletes or something like that. Like Killian Murphy is like letting the game come to him, you know? He's just in the flow, he's feeling the rhythm of it. And Emma Stone is like, "Oh, I need to score right now," you know, like driving to the basket, putting her head down. And I'm not trying to criticize Emma Stone as much as say that I realize that I much prefer an acting performance that lets the game come to them as opposed to somebody grabbing the ball and saying, watch me play, you know?
Sure. Yeah. No, I can see that. The one thing I will say about Poor Things is that everybody is really heightened in that movie. Like that movie is like exaggerated just by design. And I think everybody but Killian Murphy in this movie is going for the Oscar. I think Killian Murphy he's definitely more naturalistic than everybody else in this movie. I don't know. He looks very stressed out. We see him have a lot of nightmares about particles. Like this man
Yeah,
is losing sleep over particles early in the movie. But I think that's the most extreme he really gets with anything. Meanwhile, Emily Blunt, holy moly, she was going for that best supporting actor thing.
dude.
Um, Matt Damon, Jesus Christ, he was going for it. The scene, I chalked this up as like an important mention for Killian Murphy. The scene where he comes out of the room and he's like, "This is the most important thing that you will ever do in your entire life." Like,
I love
calm the
that.
fuck down, dude.
Dude, I thought that was so good. Where Killian Murphy
Too
is just
much.
he's trying to convince this guy. He's trying to convince the scientist, like, hey, we're gonna end the war. And this guy's like, man, why would I do that? and, and then Damon is like tired of hearing it. Like, what are you talking about? This matters. You know, you're a pencil pusher. You spend all your time in the back of a lab, like theorizing about things and making things up. And this, what we're doing now is actually important. This will actually have an impact on things. And you're debating if you should get involved. Like, I get it. I thought that was great. After the pattern of like, it's because it seemed like Oppenheimer was putting the moves on everybody to convince them on. And then they hit you
Mhm.
with Matt Damon just finally losing his cool and just screaming at some guy. And I think it just establishes that they're on completely separate pages of this project. Their priorities are different and they just have different views on this thing. And I loved it. There are people in this movie, and I think Emily Blunt is one of them. And I guess Florence Pugh, and then some of the like, I mean, they're the most famous people in this, but and then some of the other actors, maybe like Rami Malek or whatever. There's some people where I'm like, are they in the same movie as
Mhm.
Killian Murphy? There's some combinations of people like Killian and Emily Blunt just seem like they're kind of they could be in two different things, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh,
And
totally.
that was weird to me. I feel like Killian Murphy and Florence Pugh are in two different movies. Uh, which I don't know. I think it's fascinating because I'm ready to ride and die with Killian Murphy. I'm just on this train, and it's a train that's passing through the stations of all these other actors doing fun stuff and really swinging for the fences. So it's I think it's a fun ride, but yeah, some of these the acting combinations are a little all over the place, right?
You know what I think it is? Yeah, I think Killian Murphy is in a Christopher Nolan movie. I
Yeah.
think all these other people are in Oscar movies. I think people could smell it early. This is an Oscar contender, and they really got on board. So I feel like, as much as I love Flopew, I feel like that was like a going for the Oscar performance. I feel like Damon was going for the Oscar performance. Robert Downey Jr. was absolutely going for the Oscar performance. I feel like Josh Hartnett was in a Christopher Nolan movie. Cillian Murphy was in a Christopher Nolan movie. And like they feel more locked in to scenes that you would see in Inception than anything else that would be
Yes.
like going for the Oscar.
Dude,
Like picture
I could
Michael
watch.
Caine.
Yes, yes. I could watch Josh Hartnett and Cillian Murphy do like a whole thing together.
Yeah,
Honestly,
dude.
I thought they were both great. They're both vibing. They're both on the same page. Them both being in the lab. All the scenes in those labs were like fire. But you're right. Then there must have been something else going on with these other actors. Like Robert Downey Jr. is doing like a whole different thing.
Mhm.
And that must be partially by design, It's just Cillian Murphy is this stoic character passing through this world that's full of other crazy characters or something. I don't know. Um,
Maybe, yeah. I mean, certain people just kind of fit the tone. Like this absolutely has a Nolan tone, and I do love the Nolan tone so much. They don't feel like anything else. Like I think about movies of his that have that tone very strongly, and people that fit in so well, like Robert Pattinson in Tenet, phenomenal. I thought John David Washington in Tenet also phenomenal, like perfect match. Michael Caine, obviously, Christopher Nolan all star. Um,
Gary
Tom
Oldman.
Hardy, Gary Oldman for sure, dude.
Yeah.
Tom Hardy didn't do a ton in Dunkirk, but what he did do, I thought fit perfectly.
Well, with
Mark
Bane.
Rylance on the boat. Well, yeah, with Bane too. Bane was great.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's I don't know. There's just some people that like really lock it in. Oh, you know who's great was Marion Cotillard in Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah. Oh,
She's
she seems like a
sick.
Nolan
She's so
person
good.
for sure.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah. She was in Inception too.
Yeah, man.
She's great. Yeah, this is man, they're great. I just love Killian Murphy so much. Um God, the
Do you think
Florence
did you hear it this time? How much he sounds like Robin Williams?
no.
His Oppenheimer voice is dead on Robin Williams.
No.
It is every single time he starts speaking, I think he's gonna go into a Robin Williams routine.
No.
Just, oh, we gotta get together, build a bomb. I bombed a few times on stage. Never taken out of city with it though. Like it just feels like he's gonna free associate out of nowhere.
Maybe. I feel like he's locked in, he's doing his thing, he's got his head down, he's just pushing ahead. I feel like Robert Downey Jr. or not Robert Downey Jr. I feel like Robin Williams was just had a has a lightness to him that Killian Murphy does not show up with at all. You
Oh
know?
yeah, it's
Like
he feels like a heavy one, but it's like he just sounds so much like him, and it drives me nuts.
I um I had this theory about this movie going in, and I don't think I proved it one way or the other. But we kind of go back and forth from the viewpoints of Killian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr., right?
Hmm.
So Killian Murphy is being interrogated in a room. That's like it's not a trial, he's being interrogated, interviewed there. And then Robert Downey Jr. is being interrogated in like a confirmation hearing for a cabinet seat, right?
Hmm.
And I had this theory going in that when Killian Murphy is narrating, he is going to paint things in a much different light than Robert Downey Jr. does when Robert Downey Jr. is narrating.
Okay.
And I tried to follow it for a bit and I thought it kind of worked. And then after a while, they don't go back to Killian and Robert Downey Jr. They kind of leave that alone, go back, like really just dive into the main Oppenheimer timeline and then go back to it. So it kind of falls apart. But up top, I mean, Killian Murphy is kind of presents himself initially. I guess he does talk about poisoning his teeth. Well, you know what? What was it? He, uh, it seems like, yeah. So like Oppenheimer, so Killian Murphy is like presenting himself as more of a sympathetic figure. Robert Downey Jr. comes in and is telling the story about Oppenheimer, saying, "Oh, so you're a lowly shoe salesman?" And Robert Downey Jr. says, "Just a shoe salesman."
Yeah.
And that's kind of how Robert Downey Jr. thinks of Oppenheimer. Uh, and then there's other scenes where it seemed like Robert Downey Jr. introduces the scene where Oppenheimer goes to the communist house party and meets Florence Pugh. And I think
Hmm.
immediately he insults his brother and they walk off. Somebody's trying to talk to all of them, and he just immediately like starts monologuing about himself and like blows it off. So I thought maybe that was there, but I don't know if I really locked into it hard. Um, do you think there is a narrator for this story? Do you think this is Like
Mm.
the scenes we are seeing unfold are being are coming from a specific point of view? Or do you think it's just Nolan presenting this story and then the points of view we're getting are literally monologues from these other characters?
Yeah. I think it's just Nolan presenting the story. I had a similar thought where I went to the movie last night thinking like, oh, okay, so Downey Jr. is kind of the framing device. Like his hearing is going to be narrating everything. There are a few moments where something that he says directly cues up something that then happens in Oppenheimer's version of the story. But I don't know necessarily that I think any of the events of the flashbacks that we see were colored that directly because we do see that moment where Oppenheimer says shoe salesman, like lowly shoe salesman, just a shoe salesman. And then we see the moment with Einstein. I feel like maybe I interpreted it wrong though, because that moment with Einstein was definitely setting us up so that we could see from Downey Jr.'s point of view how he always feels like he is being stymied by these like great scientific minds. So like he's on
Yeah.
this commission and yet like he's always playing second fiddle to these brilliant scientists. But watching the movie, there was never a point in time where I thought Oppenheimer had said something bad about Strauss. Maybe we were supposed to have. Did you interpret it that way the first time we saw the movie?
I don't know what Strauss's obsession with Oppenheimer is, unless it's really just that Oppenheimer embarrassed him during one hearing. Otherwise, I'm not sure why he dislikes him so much. And I'm also not sure because Robert Downey Jr. at one point presents a side of the story where he is I guess his character doesn't say anything, but in the courtroom scene when he initially presents it, we see footage of Robert Downey Jr. sitting there and kind of smiling and going with it and not taking it seriously. But
Mm.
then later it's revealed that it was actually very personal. It was a personal attack on him and he hated it. So it seems like in that instance, we're seeing things from Robert Downey Jr.'s view, or at least
Mhm.
we're being shown his lie. And then we're being shown the real thing. I guess I'm wondering if we should be questioning the reality of anything in this movie. You know, is there anything that happens in this movie or Oppenheimer does where this is not actually how it happened? This is an interpretation from somebody else.
Yeah, I didn't take it that way because I feel like we were shown a pretty neutral version of the story. Like I feel like
Yeah.
we were shown the whole thing, and I feel like normally when that happens in a movie, we'll be shown a very exaggerated version of it to fit with what the character's perspective is. But I do think we are meant to go through it understanding that Strauss has a chip on his shoulder and feels like he's, it's like a teacher, like those who can't. I feel like he is this person who found academia and he is in charge of working with all these people who are like coming to teaching after years of being groundbreaking scientists. And I feel like he feels very less than standing next to them and
Yeah.
is like looking for looking for excuses to think that they are looking down on him.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked Strauss more in the rewatch because you see him up the
Mhm.
beginning. But the first time we watched this, I was kind of like, why is Strauss showing up at the end of this? In some ways, the movie is about Strauss,
Yeah.
which is weird. It's a little bit of a weird tonal change when the movie's called Oppenheimer. It's about Oppenheimer, but really it's about whether or not Robert Downey Jr.'s character was unfair to Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's weird.
It seems like he's presenting this idea that these two are intrinsically linked and you can't have the fate of one without the fate of the other. And I just wonder why it's presented that way. Like that goes back to my original question of like, this is a 3 hour movie with a million cuts. Like they had to have shot 100 billion hours of footage to edit this thing together from. It's
Yeah.
wild how many locations they have, how many actors. And I just wonder why he wanted that big of a scope. He the thing that I see a lot of people locking in on in reviews of this movie is that line that Niels Bohr says to Oppenheimer early in the movie about it's not sheet music. Anybody can read sheet music. It's about whether or not you can hear the music. And
Mhm.
I was watching this one last night, trying to apply that analogy to the movie itself. And I guess maybe structure, maybe the individual scenes, maybe all those trappings that I'm getting upset about because he blew through them. Maybe that's the sheet music. And what he wants us to see is the music of him playing the movie at the speed that he wants. But what I can't grasp yet, and maybe this is a failing on my part, but I can't hear the music that he wants me to hear. I can't hear why he wants me to hear the music that way.
Now I'm thinking at the end of the movie, maybe his whole message with this is like more like the Dark Knight, where it's like you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. Like
Sure.
Oppenheimer has this arc where he is a hero, but Einstein is already warning him like things are going to be awful for you. And then there's going to be an arc where they're then going to worship you as a hero again, but that's to make them feel good. So
Hmm.
it does seem like kind of two different plots, which is like Oppenheimer as a man being a fascinating figure, a very flawed figure who our introduction to him is him going to poison his teacher, by the way,
Yeah.
which I forgot about after 3 hours in this movie. He puts he injects poison into an apple like an evil stepmother to take out a teacher who like made a joke about him in a lab. Like this is an unhinged human being. He's insane. Um, it's Oppenheimer, and it's also just the way maybe our country or the bureaucracy treat uh treat assets like this or manipulate things like this or kind of take the best ideas for themselves and then take all the credit for it uh and leave it behind. I don't know what I'm exactly saying right now, but
I know what you're saying. I'm
there
picking
is
up
a
on it.
thing of
You're
yeah,
agreeing. It's a
yeah.
superhero movie. Yeah, he's Batman.
I guess it's like Batman if but instead of that, Commissioner Gordon comes out and says that I am the one cleaning up the streets. Batman, he, like oh god, Roosevelt's the one who drops the bomb. He's like, I dropped the bomb. Nobody cares who made it, you
Hmm.
know? Like it'd be like if Commissioner Gordon's like, actually, I'm the one who cleaned up the streets. I sent the Batman in there, you know?
Yeah.
Uh Yeah, it's interesting. I'm gonna watch it again. We'll see. See if I take
Wow.
anything different away. What about you, Kevin? You watching it again? You're just out on this movie completely.
It's just not it's just not for me. This one's a miss for me. I'll probably watch it again. I'll give it at least one more fair shake in the future. Maybe I need to
Mm.
come around to it. Um, but I'm kind of fascinated by it. And I'm fascinated by how much everybody else loves it. And I can feel that I'm on the outside of this. So all I can really do is voice my opinion here and then just blend into the background. Go back
Are
into the
you
shadows.
are you okay with Oppenheimer winning Best Picture?
No, fuck no. Oh my God, no, dude. Past
What's the
Lives. Past Lives is the best movie I saw from 2023. Past Lives was incredible.
I didn't see it, but if it wins in a future year, then maybe I'll watch it for the pod.
Yeah, that happens a lot, actually. It's like how Jaws won in 2004. Listener, what did you think? Are you in on Oppenheimer? Are you out on Oppenheimer? Let us know. Send us an email, nerdy430@gmail.com. We will read it on the show. We do not get many emails. We have read all the emails we've gotten. It is a direct pipeline between you and the other listeners of this pod. So fire one off. We'll see you there. Till then, stay nerdy, everybody.
Stay
Bye.
nerdy. Bye.